Okay, so we're moving on to the next chapter in our scheme, which is chapter 37, to the moon and beyond. Now, we had a little look at this already, in that we have done it, the moon documentary that I showed you in class. So the first thing that we're going to have a look at is the moon. The moon is actually our nearest neighbour. Okay, at about 384,400 kilometres away. You don't need to remember that value. Remember, when we looked at the moon documentary, the moon was an awful lot closer to us. It's moving away at about 1.5 inches every year. The second thing about our moon is that it is the second brightest object in our sky. Okay, the sun is obviously our brightest, followed then by the moon. And it is suggested that it is because of the moon that our planet has become stable. That kind of brings us on to something here of the idea of the difference between planet versus moon. So a planet is something which orbits the sun. Remember, the sun is a star. Okay. And the moon is something then that orbits the planet, or a planet. And we've loads of different moons in our Milky Way and in our galaxy. Okay. Earth only has one moon, but different planets have loads of different moons, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Anything here that is orbiting Earth is called a satellite. So the moon here is a satellite of Earth. Okay. Next then, we're going to move on to how the moon was formed. And again, this did kind of appear in the documentary that we looked at. So firstly, we had a collision, and it was a large object, they think, collided with the Earth. And when it collided with the Earth, it actually ended up breaking off some material. And this material then fused or joined together and formed the moon. Okay, and they think that this happened about 4.6 billion years ago. So at one stage, the moon was very close to Earth. Okay, and obviously over a period of time, it has continually moved away. Remember, our Big Bang occurred about 12 billion years ago. So a long time ago here for our moon. Just a few things. From Earth, we can only see one side of the moon. Okay? And we actually call that side the far side. Now, sometimes you will actually hear it being called the dark side. That's actually technically incorrect. And when we were looking at the phases of the moon in chapter 38, that will become clear. Because of Earth's tilt, sometimes we can see up to about 59% of the moon. So depending on what the tilt of the Earth is, we can see a little bit more than its 50%. And a lunar cycle takes 28 days. Lunar is the Latin word for moon. Okay, and 28 days means the amount of time it takes for the moon to orbit the Earth. So roughly about 28 days. That's actually where the idea of month comes from, moon month. Okay, so roughly 28 days. The next thing then about the moon is that it does not or cannot produce its own light. Okay, something that produces its own light is called luminous. Something which cannot produce its own light is called non-luminous. So it's a non-luminous object. And how do we see things? And how do we see the moon? It's because it reflects the light of the sun. Okay, so we also have the names of two different types of special moons. We have harvest moons and we have blue moons. And we'll be looking at those in a little more detail. And finally then we have different planets. And different planets also have different moons. And again, this is going to be another assignment that ye are going to be looking at. So the different moons. You're going to pick one moon from a planet.